And go blue, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Michigan Postgame Live. My name's John Diadamo, and thanks everybody for coming in. We did have a game tonight. Felt like a million years since the last game. 41-13, Michigan does get it done against the Purdue Boilermakers. We do have our co-host who joins us every Saturday. We've got Dre in the house. Dre, go blue.
Go blue to you as well. Hope you guys are doing well, and another win under the cap.
Yep, the last warm-up game is now done, and Dre, you and I were both at the Illinois game last year,
right.
And for a minute, it looked like that might be where this was going, just for a minute. And then
potentially
Michigan did its thing.
Yeah. We'll get out to a very hot start initially. And then definitely slowed up. I thought it's very safe to say that they look rusty. JJ for sure looked rusty. Show a little bit of definitely a lot of inaccuracy in decision making as well. I thought it was a little spotty overall. But it's one of those games where with everything going on, you want to just make sure everybody's healthy. You knew they were going to be Purdue, but I don't think anybody questioned that even for a second. But you want to make sure that, especially with what's going on next week and who they have, that guys were healthy, and for the most part, if there was any rust, they hopefully knocked it off at some point during the game, which it looked like they did, especially with JJ. It looks like he was able to hit a few guys in stride and got better throughout. It was really good having. I was really happy to see Davin Edwards, making plays different, in different variations. In a run game, getting a running touchdown. If JJ makes a slightly better throw, he would have had a receiving touchdown as well. It was a really good throw, but if he puts a little bit out in front of Donnie just basically walks into the end zone. So that was really good to see. We know what Quorum's going to do. He's very consistent. Defensively, look, Will Johnson continues to be. Look, John, me and you've been, steady Eddie when it comes to that. That kid's an NFL corner. I mean, he's an incredible instincts, really good size. So no, I mean, look, it wasn't necessarily pretty for Michigan standards, but they played well. They did what they had to do.
Yeah. So, kind of to start off with the offense, and we'll start positive, and I've kind of got the leaders and best of the offense. And I mean, JJ from a passing yardage perspective, but I kind of had these four who had breakout moments in the game. Obviously, Roman Wilson has continued to just, I mean, I think he's as good as the 2023 version of Marvin Harrison Jr. And I know that's a big statement, but every time he's open, he catches the ball. It reminds me of when Ohio State's in a jam. They know, Kyle McCord knows he can throw it to MHJ and it's going to be complete every time. And we really haven't had a lot of wide receivers in the last, at least 5-10 years that are that automatic. I mean, and I think a lot of that's coaching because we had players. We had Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's now starting in the NFL. But what do you think? I mean, I just feel like Roman Wilson is at a level where we don't see a Michigan wide receiver at very often.
Well, I think I don't know as a raw talent that he's better than some of the guys you mentioned, but I think that he's quick. And I think for the most part, he just has a really good connection with JJ. I think that's the main thing. A lot of times, and you see this with a guy like Cooper Kupp, who may not be the fastest guy or the biggest guy, but he is very foundational with his route running. He knows where he needs to be. He's able to read coverages, and it typically has a really good connection with his quarterback. Once it was at one point it was Jared Goff, and then it was Matthew Stafford. So I look at a guy like Roman Wilson similar to that kind of mode where he's not going to blow you away with his intangibles, but he has a really good connection to quarterback and knows where to be.
Yeah, and Colston Loveland is the other one where when JJ's in a jam or he's in a third down situation, Colston Loveland's there. And he didn't, I think there was like one miss today, but like he's consistently catching those balls in third down situations, whether it's like, I mean, it might be a 3rd and 2, or it might be a 3rd and 11, or 3rd and whatever. And Colston Loveland's just there and he's able to catch. Like JJ and Colston Loveland have clearly some type of like good chemistry going because
Right.
he and I think part of it's just because he's been so automatic and because he's completed so many passes, JJ trusts him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to his credit, I think that he's probably outside of obviously Brock Bowers with Georgia. He's quietly creeping up to be one of the better tight ends in the country. Now, where
Yeah.
he ranks within that, I'm not exactly sure, but he has really good size. He's very athletic for that position. He has good hands, and he finds ways to get open, like you said, John. So, I'm with you. I'm in lockstep there. He's quickly becoming one of the better receiving options, I think, definitely in the conference.
Yeah.
I'll put him up there for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and I'll even give that team down south the nod and say probably, I would say Stover's probably 2, and I would put Loveland at a very close 3 under, but it's like real close.
Yeah.
Like there's an argument for them to be flipped.
Yeah, but
Bowers is
and this is not
obviously.
to take anything away from Stover, but Stover is like a 5th-year senior, and what Loveland's in his 2nd year.
That's true.
So I mean that speaks volumes. Then that's not to diminish. So I think Stover is a very, very solid player. But no, I'm with you. He probably has like the bigger track record. Um, but no, man. I mean, just watching Colston Loveland, every particular week, it's like, wow, how did we get this guy? Typically a guy like that ends up at Iowa for whatever reason. They're tight end U, so maybe we possibly stole one from them.
Yeah, that's true. We don't want to forget Eric All and Luke Lachey. They're obviously doing pretty well at Iowa. And,
Well, yeah, but Eric All tore, it's incredible. I don't know if you knew Eric All tore his ACL. Did you know that?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
You
haven't
talking
been.
about bad luck for like literally Cade
Jeez.
and Eric. Yeah, Cade and Eric All transferred to Iowa trying to, further their career, and they literally both tore the ACL in the same year. I mean, talking
Can't
about
catch a break, man.
no, they can't. That's terrible, man. I mean, I was like, wow, what are the chances of that? But I thought it would have been cool to have a matchup with them, in the Big Ten title game potentially, and come to see that storyline and stuff like that. But yeah, but that's why, especially John, as season continues to go on. Number one, of course, you want to win, but number two, you want to make sure guys stay healthy, especially our top tier guys, because there just isn't any wiggle room for your most important players missing time at this point in the season.
Yeah. And somebody was mentioning, I think it was Jason, that the silver lining to the kind of rough, I mean, or I guess you can just call it messy first 3 quarters or so, is that we got to see the starters actually have meaningful time in the 4th quarter, which they're gonna need to have that experience because we're about to go to Penn State and face a team with an actual offense with a pulse for the first time this season, and a good defense. So it's good that that they were able to get that experience, and actually play a lot more of the game, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You know what, man? And then I thought somebody you got it up here. Samaj Morgan was
Yeah.
something. Seeing that, I love when we get the chance to showcase our guys with. You call it. I like the term SEC speed. Like seeing him on that reverse play, it was just like wow. Having a guy be able to get out and open and get to open it up, if you will, with their speed is really cool to see. And I thought the approach that Shamir Moore had today. It was a lot of misdirection with our offense, and I was digging
Yeah.
it. And you're going to need that. It's going to be needed next week against a really good defense with Penn State. We're not. Our running game hasn't necessarily been humming as well as it has the last couple of years for whatever reason. And for to probably open those front seven of the Penn State defense, you're going to need to have some misdirection. It may be tough to just hammer them all night, all day, and be able to get the type of yards they were looking for. So I was happy to see that Sherrod Moore had those wrinkles into his offense.
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, yes, I agree that for like not a decent most of the game, Sharon Moore, I thought had some good play calling. And all year you've seen motion, you've seen some misdirection, you've seen a lot of tight end motion. But what was weird early in this game is that they called a shotgun on fourth down, a shotgun play, and with Khalil Mullings, and he's just coming back from injury. Like he was out for a few weeks, so that made me scratch my head, and that's why when they went with the ace single setback with Samaj Morgan, and then also the Corum touchdown, which when they had I formation going on. I think they need. I'm hoping that that's like a taste of what's to come, because Michigan's historically done that, and in this game it was very reliant on shotgun. But when you change formations, good things happen because they don't. They have to. The defenses have to adjust, and Purdue played all the credit to Purdue on their defense, man. That I gotta say, they were making some lights out plays, especially for a 2-win team. Like that
Yeah, they didn't
defense
look like it, did
playing
they?
out of
Defensively,
really well.
I thought defensively they were very physical. That was surprising to me as well. They tackled well. They just didn't have when the game was kind of middling between 20 to 6. They just didn't have the offense to make the game make Michigan sweat a little bit more. But their defense, for the most part, I thought was pretty stout. Um, you got to get credit, and I'm sure either you have it outlined somewhere, or I know I've seen it in the comments. Ryan Walters' little icy, a little handshake. I don't know if you caught that, John.
Yes, at the
Um,
end there, yeah.
but credit to Ryan Walters in terms of he was a DC, he did a really good job as a DC at Illinois last year, and looks like that's rubbed off on his own program now with Purdue. Now, what the runway is, they're already 2-7 going forward. Who knows? That's obviously a tough place to win that, which you got to give Jeff Brom a lot of credit for. I mean, look what he did getting them to the Big Ten title game last year, and now look what he's done with Louisville. So he has a tough act to follow, but yeah, you give Purdue credit. It's not that easy for a team that's already 2-6 and have to come to the big house and with everything going on and compete. And I thought they did that very well. So, and it's part of a good thing that happened to Michigan as well. To face a team that, even though they may not be as physically talented as Michigan is, they came in with a certain physicality that Michigan should expect next week. So maybe that was just the type of team that's going to be, like a pain, like a thorn in your foot a little bit.
Mhm.
Maybe that's just the type of team that will work this team up, get them back to where they need to be to go win next week.
Yeah, I mean, I, it's tough to evaluate, because in a way it's like apples to oranges. But I will say that Penn State has a very tough defense as well. It's obviously got more talent in terms of blue chip than Purdue, but they it's similar level of mental toughness, and yeah, so to have to face that now definitely gives. And it's not like, I mean, we defense, we've faced good defenses all year. The problem is we haven't faced an offense with a pulse, unless you want to count the what I call the preseason games. Um, And so that's my one concern is like,
Right.
other than Nebraska for like a couple of plays where their quarterback was doing some things, and I mean it's been very the defenses have been decent, but the offenses have been abysmal. We're about to go into Penn State and play. I would say at least they have a pulse on offense. They're not as good as people thought that they were going to be.
Right.
But it's the best one that we faced all year. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, it is the best one that they've faced all year. And look, unfortunately, especially the last couple of years where Michigan has been really good, that's always been like the hard thing to depict. Like they would dominate the lower competition, but you just weren't exactly sure how they would match up versus a Penn State versus Ohio State, right? And so a lot of it's just projection.
Right.
We're seeing what they do well, running the football well, tackle well, fundamentally sound. And we're saying that these things should carry over and give them a chance to win. And so it's the same thing this year. Their schedule is what it is. And to their credit, for the most part, especially since Big Ten play has started, they have rolled their competition. From a final score standpoint, did they have some times where they look a little shaky for a quarter or maybe part of a half? Sure, but for the most part, they've steamrolled everybody. So and everybody, those other two teams have had very similar situations. Ohio State has had a couple of games here when they've been meddling with their competition. They struggled against I think Indiana a little bit. I know they struggled, not Indiana, Maryland. I know they did. Rutgers, they struggled with a little bit today. They had more than I think 2 or 3 games this year where they should be quote unquote blowing a team out, and they're struggling to get rid of them. Same thing with Penn State. They were struggling with Illinois a little bit. So struggled at Northwestern for a little bit. I think they were down at the half. So I think it's just been par for the course for even the quote unquote better teams in the Big Ten East. And you don't really know until like they clash heads to go at it. Now, the first of the Titans to clash was Penn State, Ohio State. Ohio State clearly was the better team. So we'll see how Michigan looks against Penn State next week.
Yeah. GOJ, you did struggle. I mean, it wasn't.
You guys struggled.
Like you pulled it out in the end, but like for a decent chunk of the game, you guys were in a dogfight against Rutgers. Like I mean, yeah, like you.
And that's no diss, man. I mean, you look, man. DOJ, you've been here you've been following us for a while, so that how I am. I'm pretty straightforward. No, halftime's not the end, but we're trying to say, man. Like if hold on a second. So you mean to tell me that before the game started, you expected to be that close with Rutgers at halftime, quote unquote, the number 1 team in the country, to be that close with Rutgers? Yeah, you were in a dogfight the first half. Now, did you do your job the second half? Of course you did.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not act. Let's not act like you didn't see that. We're not going to turn a blind eye to the first half. It all matters because, like John said, what happens when our team, your team, is playing the other, and one of us has one of those slow starts. Okay, that we may not have the wiggle room to recover. We can't afford to start slow like that against y'all, and you can't afford to start slow like that against us. So that's why it's relevant, especially when our teams have done it multiple times this year. It is a talking point, and it's not something that you should ignore. Now, I do expect to see you guys that last Saturday in November, and you should be undefeated. So should we, and we're going to go at it. And but like he's a good guy. He's here all the time. But like, come on, man, let's not act like we didn't see that first half.
Yeah. So we did have and we really appreciate the super chat. There's so many comments going on. We got a lot of people on in here, so there's no way I'm going to be able to get to most of the comments. So super chatting, definitely the best way to get your comment or question on air. And I knew this was coming, and so at least it comes attached to a contribution. So thank you, Mamba, for contributing to voice of college football. What do you guys think of everything going on with this sign stealing stuff? I don't think you should punish the kids. As far as the game, I think we need to be more play first so teams don't stack the box. Dre, you go first, and then I'll contribute what I know.
Okay. Okay. Wow. This is a very loaded.
It's a lot of things in this super chat.
Right. I'm trying to see. Just give me 30 seconds, 15 seconds
Okay,
here to try to. No, I'm ready, John.
Okay.
I've been waiting to actually put this out there. So here's
Okay.
the thing. There is a part of this process that definitely needs to play out in terms of, how deep does this go? Was this a rogue individual, or was this a direction from the top to do X, Y, and Z?
Mhm.
I cannot say, based on what is known and what is factual, what happened. Do I see enough to understand that there was some kind of knowledge gained and therefore applied based on video and stuff like that? It looks like it. Now, here's the problem for people who are using that as some kind of uh, uh, way to diminish Michigan's accomplishments or to diminish what they are as a team. There's no way in the world that you can quantify how effective that is, how often it's used from a couple clips. There's so much that goes on in a game of football in terms of execution, identification, for a play to be successful or not. It's very, very hard. All 11 guys on both sides of the ball have to be in unison and do their job. Okay. So I think it's very disingenuous when people try to use this allegation or scandal, whatever you want to say, as a way to diminish what they've done and who they are. Now, that doesn't mean, and I do push back on my fellow Michigan fans that we should turn a blind eye and not acknowledge that it's there. But at the same time, it's okay to be smart and say, look, there's something that went on, there's something that's being investigated. I acknowledge it, but I've seen enough of those teams to know they are really good. And I think they have done enough to prove that they should continue throughout this process, at least until something factual comes down the pipe, and then we see what the consequences or non-consequences should be.
Yeah.
I just think that's the most responsible thing, and I think these guys, especially the players, don't deserve to have the rug pulled from under them the rest of the season. Um, it's not their fault, based on whoever was involved in this decision making. They just go out there and they execute, and they've done a damn good job of that the last 2 going on 3 seasons. So, we'll see. But I think that it's so easy, John, with something like this for people who don't like Michigan, to use this as a way to attack, and fans of Michigan to use this as a way to get defensive. And the truth is probably gray or somewhere in the middle, where we acknowledge what's going on. But let's be honest. I think if you have eyes, DOJ, the rest of the Ohio State fans in this chat, any other Big Ten fans in this chat, you'll be lying to yourself. You know damn well this team isn't really good and it hasn't been really good. We've matched up well the last couple of years, and I did not for once ever see a fan say, you know what, I don't see how they beat us like this. Something's going on. You know why? Because, John, when you watch Michigan play on offense, it's not some kind of look, dude. I've seen every freaking game. I've always watched every single game, but I've come on this show
Right.
after every game, and I would talk about, like, man, this offense looks cluttered. They don't look fun. They struggle. So I don't know what was investigated, or I'm not investigated what signs were picked up, or what film they used, or in-person scouting was used, but it obviously wasn't very effective with the offense over the last couple of years. It's been a battle, And when they're at their best, it's very simple. You know what we're doing. We're running the football. You just can't stop it. We haven't identified some kind of weakness in your signal on defense, and now we're about to exploit it. That's never been a Michigan offense. It's always been like a struggle in 2 or 3 yards of cloud of dust. Defensively, I guess we didn't scout MSU well enough 2021 because Kenneth Walker III had 5 freaking touchdowns.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't identify it enough then too. And that's my point where there needs to be a little bit of a great area where it's like, hold on a second. This team is really good, but this also may have happened as well. And we need to just figure out, be able to talk about both things at the same time without diminishing the present as much. So that's it is a very difficult conversation.
Right.
But I think if we're all trying to be fair to each other, we should be able to come to some kind of conclusion in regards to that, Sorry.
Yeah, no. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I've been kind of on a lot of these shows, Big Ten and Michigan Wolverines Live and everything. So but there's new news that comes out every day practically. I think there's still, like I say, anytime I talk about this, there's still so much we don't know. And to rush to judgment in either direction, I would just say everybody take a collective breath, right? Did Connor Stallions obviously buy these tickets? We know he did. But I still don't see the evidence he broke a bylaw at all. Unless the thing about the Central Michigan, he disguised himself and wore, the goggles with the camera on it or whatever Mission Impossible thing happened there. But the actual, what he did, if you read the bylaws, you read Section 11, and it's geared towards staff. Okay, it's not supposed to be geared towards anybody that you hire to do anything, because there's actually parts, if you dig deep enough, where they say, look, we know that you can go on YouTube, get film, you can purchase film or get a third party. So there's various things there that the NCAA alludes to. And we know that there's that kind of stuff going on. So as long as it's not actual staff, full-time staff going to the games, then that's not in violation. Now, are they going to get them on something? I could see there being a fine for violating the spirit. I could also see everybody switching to radio communications on the headset after this year, because I think that what this has really opened up is the reality that college football lives in the dark ages when it comes to having these ridiculous signs up with Taylor Swift and everything else, or they're signaling or whatever. Just put the radios in the freaking headsets, man. That will solve all of this, and we can move on and actually enter the 21st century in college football. But honestly, we don't know all the facts. And the Big Ten coaches and ads, they want action, because Michigan's got this unfair advantage, quote unquote. But according to Isaiah Hull, friend of the program, Isaiah Hull, who's been on Michigan Wolverines Live a bunch of times, apparently there's a sign trading ring. So every Sunday, a bunch of the different schools get together and trade signs. And apparently, Michigan and Ohio State are considered tier 1 at knowing other teams' signs.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just a Michigan. Now, maybe they had the most extensive, operation, but all I can say is, if this whole thing about Ohio State hiring investigators is true, well, Michigan can hire investigators too. And all I can say is, I hope Ohio State, their house is in order. Penn State's house is in order. Everybody chirping about this. Let's just be careful, because we're just, investigating each other.
John,
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I had that thought that that this could, especially when you heard about the pool of coaches around the country, especially the 10 coaches in there, their thoughts on it. Now, look, if someone asks you a question, I mean, I can't blame you for answering it, but I will say that, especially when if this there any credence to Ohio State being behind this whole thing getting started, that once you start something like this, don't be surprised if someone comes digging in your backyard as well, and then if they find something, you'll have to deal with that. It'll be like this whole petty party. But look, how we got here, it is what it is. But I think the best thing is, honestly, I'm exhausted by it. I'm exhausted. I just um I want there to be resolution in terms of, can we figure out who's accountable, hold them accountable, and move forward. And ideally speaking, and here's why I think it's really hard as a Michigan fan, is that, do I believe that no matter what information that was obtained or therefore used at certain points in the game, that it has some kind of huge impact on what Michigan has done in any game of the last 2.5 years? I just don't. I just don't. Because I've watched the games, John. I've seen the good and the bad. It's not like we just since this supposedly time frame happened, that we just been rolling teams and everything's been perfect. Like we did, you remember, the video games used to have cheat codes. You can put
Yeah.
in certain cheat codes, and then like it's not like it's not like that. It's been a struggle at times. It's been a journey, and that's why I think it's hard to emotionally, like, hold on a second here. Like, I'm not saying that we dismiss this, but I'll be damned if I'm allow people to just use this as some, you guys are cheaters and that's how you are where you are. BS. BS. And that's not the truth. That's not the truth. And look, I just, and for the guys on the field, those who are, that's who I feel bad for the most, because they're the ones that were in the weight room. They're the ones that are putting their bodies on the line, and through their merit, no matter what play has been called, they're the ones that's executing. So, honestly, those are the guys I think about and worry about the most, excuse me, during this. But at the same time, like I do want us as Michigan fans to acknowledge, that something happened, and that if there is some, and whoever is accountable should be held accountable. I think that at the very least we should do that, because if we're going to on one hand say, you know what, we're not perfect, but we try to do things quote unquote the right way, then, well, if something comes up, then we need to be leaders. We say we are the leaders and best. And part of
Hmm.
being a great leader is, even if when you make a mistake or something happens under your watch, that you have to, set an example. And sometimes, that's doing things that's difficult, and making difficult decisions. Now, what that is, we'll find out. But that's what I want for them.
Yeah, I think the players don't deserve this, like you're saying. I mean, the players have like a lot of them chose to come back. They could have gone to the NFL. They chose to come back for
Yeah.
this year and to go on this kind of like hopefully title run. And so for this to all happen, like that's like you said, no matter what comes out, no matter what winds up being the truth here, this I hope whatever the punishment is, if there is a punishment in season, there's nothing geared toward the players, and really they can't. I mean, the worst that the Big Ten commissioner can do is 10K fine and 2 game suspension without going to the next level of approval. Just like all the presidents have to approve anything higher than that under the sportsmanship laws that they have at the Big Ten as a conference. So, you know, is Harbaugh going to be given an immediate suspension by the Big Ten? That's really what we're gonna find out over the next week or two.
Yeah. And Marcus, Grandin, I wish that was the case. I wish that we didn't have to talk about this.
Me
But
too.
you know what? It's a reality of what is going on.
Mhm.
It's national news. It seems to be something new. It seemed to be, you haven't heard anything the last couple of days, but besides, Stallions resignation or firing based on whatever source, you talk to. But, um, it's a reality of the situation, you know. And I imagine imagine this, how boring and irritating it is for us. Imagine if you are a player. Now, they say, and coach say, they try to tune the stuff out. These are 18 to 23-year-olds who have all sorts of different type of social media accounts. You really think they're in a bubble and don't see this stuff going on? They absolutely do. So imagine it from their standpoint, and their goals. Someone tried to say, one of the Ohio State trolls for having heard, like, oh, poor JJ, going to the NFL, becoming a millionaire. Let me tell you something, man. Like, these guys who go out there, they're going out there to win and to win here and win where they are. Okay. Don't tell me if something happens in your season where potentially someone's going to derail the ultimate goal that you've been. I'll put it to you this way. All you have to do is go back to the Georgia game 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And when Michigan lost to Georgia, the sighting of Blake Corum and JJ McCarthy, and there was somebody else, they were just I think Dalvin Edwards actually, and they were watching Georgia celebrate. Don't tell me that these guys don't care about winning the national title. It's not. It matters. It absolutely does. And it's incredibly insulting to say, oh, well, poor them. No, man, you'll be very hurt by that too. Of course, you have your future look forward to, but the here and now is everything to them. That's the only thing left for them to do. This group that came in a couple of years ago, guys like JJ, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Roman Wilson, Michael Barrett, these guys, this is the only thing they haven't done. They've won. They beat Ohio State a couple times now.
Mhm.
They've reshaped the rivalry, if you will. They've made it to the college football playoff, and the only thing left to do is to win a national title. That's it. And so and when you hear it goes back to Blake Corum's comments before the end of the season, beginning of the season. It's national title or bust for them. That's it. So imagine if that's the goal that you've been working towards your whole off season. This is you as a player. You're trying to control what you can control, and now you have this outside noise that could potentially derail your season. How would you feel? So I'm sorry I had to take a chance to do that, but I just think it's a very ignorant thing to say. Um, and yeah, that's just it.
Yeah, and so there was a question about, did we read the Santa Ono statement? So I did, and so obviously the president of the university, Santa Ono, met with Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, but right before he met with in person, he sent an email which basically says the TLDR versions basically like, let due process play out. Like, let the NCAA investigation do its thing. They're going to look at everything, and unless the Big Ten is also going to start its own investigation where Michigan is allowed to defend itself, which you'd be able to present all of your stuff as well. Then essentially the implication is that Michigan's not going to accept a punishment before an investigation happens, which means there could be an injunction if the Big Ten does impose punishment this year and without due process going forward. There could be a court visit.
Yeah,
It's being discussed. So
yeah. I don't think that whatever happens is going to be like this clean cut thing. I think this is going to um, be quite a drawn out process, and we'll see. But hey, look, man, you this is one of those situations where when there's a fire in your backyard, you know, everyone's quick to point it out, but sometimes they may not be quick to do something about it. It's something for us to handle internally, right? So that's what's going on right now. And like I said, look, you this is for the trolls out there. You can't catch me in anything. Trust me. I don't hide from anything. I acknowledge what's going on, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it doesn't take away from how I view my team. We're better than you. We're better than Ohio State. Okay,
Yep.
we've been better than you last 2 years now. And let's be honest, your quarterback doesn't look very good right now.
Right.
Now, if you have fixed the issues in terms of your physicality and your ability to stop the run game, we'll find out later this month. So, all that's gonna come to a head. And if you beat us, and I'll shake your hand and I say good luck going forward. But you're not gonna, I'm just not built like that. So you have to worry about trying to catch me in some kind of, how about this, how about that? No, I'm a straight shooter. This is what it is. But I'm not going to diminish what my team has done because I believe that is legitimate. So that's just it.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, we'll see exactly the wrongdoing that was done and how many schools participated in similar. Because that's the one thing about unearthing things is that it tends to people tend to start looking elsewhere, and so it's pretty clear that Michigan Connor Stallions did send people and all that stuff. Like it's clear from the ticket sales. The question is, again, it's going to come down. It's going to be 2 years probably before all this is resolved.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I mean, the NCAA takes its time, and even even they haven't even sent a notice of what we're being accused of yet. Like, there's no official letter yet of.
You know, I actually think that one day, by good or bad, that this has to be like a 30 for 30. It's an insane story that we really think about it. Like,
Yeah,
like it.
Connor
If I
Stallions
was,
in
if I was a
disguise
guest
on the
man,
sideline. Yeah,
yeah, like if I was a guest man, like I'm pretty sure that Michigan isn't the first school to get involved with something like this because, like, look, and it's a dumb. And here's another thing too. Like, it's a dumb rule to begin with. I think this rule was
Mhm.
put in place, I think, 1994. The reason behind it was because it was to even the playing field because quote unquote programs that didn't have the funds to send guys across the country and scout other opponents. It was put in there for that particular reason. So I mean, look, high school coaches do it all the time.
Mhm.
Like that's how you get film. Like you go to watch other team play. It by all means, trust me. I'm not saying this is high school football, but I'm just making a point. Like
Right.
it's football at the end of the day. It's about X's and O's and pros and Joes. And you can know what I'm doing or have an idea of what I'm doing, but you still have to execute it. And even in
Yep.
that particular, it's hard. It's very, very hard. And so, look, man, the best thing this team can continue to do is handle their business week to week in the way that you shut people up or the way that that the way you shut people up is just continue to win and prove that what and honestly, John, I hope these guys continue to use this as motivation. People think
Yeah.
that you can be here, prove them wrong. You know,
Michigan versus everybody. I think we've done this topic, pretty well. But kind of getting back to the game and kind of looking at where things stand, and then obviously future games. There's one more offense piece I wanted to just kind of go at, and that's Sharon Moore, Donovan Edwards. Put him in as a slot receiver. Put him in as you do a reverse. I don't, but like, can we stop with the Donovan Edwards up the middle? Because
I think he's a receiver. I think his future, probably even at the next level, is that receiver. I think that's what's best for him. He's. I mean, look what happened today, man. Like I at this point, I'm like, look, if Mullins and Quorum are the main two guys, then put Donovan on the outside. You can't. It never hurts to have enough weapons.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like they're doing, Michigan's MO in general is rotating. So, like, and they do it for most positions. So yeah, I have no issue. Like, because as a receiver, Donovan did get 41 yards.
Mhm.
He was a receiving threat tonight. Obviously, he had that big play,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's where his specialty is. Or you can use him as a decoy as well, and he's been used as that. Like there's been times where he's in the backfield along with Blake Corum. There's been times where it's like an RPO or a play action where they fake the handoff and they wind up tossing it to Loveland or something like that. So definitely like that's fine, but I just think they need to get a little bit like in the Penn State game. I'm really hoping that Corum's the primary, back with some Khalil Mullings, but let's not run him up the shotgun in our own 30. But he can get you a first down most of the time too. What do you think? Yeah, people are mentioning the O line. Yeah, I mean, I definitely Ladarius got cooked a couple of times today.
That's not
Overall,
bad.
it's still decent, but
Yeah, look, they're a step, maybe step and a half below the last couple of years. I mean, I still think they're very solid. Offensive line, very solid, but they're not quite as good. Whether it's the cohesiveness. I think Ola Timmy, having an All-American center, that's an incredible loss because it's not just about the ability to block; it's the ability to help make calls, audibles. Um, so anytime you lose a guy like that, you're going to miss him. And so like they're definitely not quite as good as they were, but they're good enough. I'll put it this way: they're still good enough to be more successful than they have been. And I still demand more out of them because I believe that's still there. Um, and we'll see. We'll see. But I think the good thing about this offense is that where the running game has slightly taken a step back, JJ McCarthy has taken up the slack of that.
mm-hmm.
Whether he's making plays with his legs or just being better as an overall passer. Now he was a little bit rusty today,
Yeah.
but overall he's been better.
Yeah, shout out to Kurt Campbell and Ron Bellamy, and and I've ragged on the wide receiver coaching in the past, but I'm wondering if that was more when Gaddis was there and his influence, because these last couple, especially this past off season and into fall, yeah, quarterback and wide receiver positions have taken a step up, I think, and like you said, it's needed because yeah, the run game has it kind of hit a ceiling last year, and we've had a little bit of a dip so far.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah,
Um,
we'll see.
from a defense perspective, like we already talked about, pretty much. I mean, I don't have a lot of gripes there. I'm gonna award leaders and best awards to Will Johnson. Just, I mean, tremendous talent. One of the best cornerbacks in the country.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
obviously another interception today and just looked great. But Chris
I
Jenkins
can't
has
wait.
to have that too. So
Yeah. I can't wait to see Will Johnson matched up with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I know that's going to be great.
That's going to be an incredibly intriguing matchup. Now, look, Marvin is one of it's the best receiver in the country. Like, there's no one that's going to shut him down. But I think that Will Johnson has a really good chance to give him his best, um, his toughest challenge, if you will, on the opposite side. I don't think he's faced a corner like Will Johnson thus far. A guy with his size, his instinct, uh, his athletic ability. So I'm very excited about that. I really am. Um, and I think that later this, and then Penn State's obviously huge next week, but who are we kidding, John? I mean, even if Michigan lost next week, we still know where this is going, where this road is going to take us.
Yep.
Either way, one way or the other, to get to Indy, Michigan's going to have to go through Ohio State, no matter
Yep.
what happens against Penn State next week. So, um, yeah, I mean, we just had to continue to talk about what they got to do to get ready for that, and both teams do some things well, but then sometimes they have things that are not quite as good. I saw GOJ was talking about Trevion Henderson. Trevion Henderson's been so up and down most of his career. I
Yeah.
thought, him as a true freshman, I never forget watching his first game against Minnesota. I was like, wow, this guy looks special. And then he
Yeah.
kind of
Real good.
disappeared a little bit, you
Mm-hmm.
know. If he might be the best pure talent in the conference, but I still think Blake Corum is the most consistent running back in his conference and probably the most consistent running back in the country. We're not talking about as an NFL prospect. I'm talking about consistent. You know what you're getting. He's a hammer. He's reliable. He's always going forward. And so I don't know, but it's going to be really intriguing. I think this is one of those years where both teams are going to be pretty closely evenly matched. I believe that.
Absolutely. So since we brought up Penn State, just a reminder that we've got Michigan Wolverines live Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have Tony from Black Shoe Diaries give the Penn State preview, and we'll have Tanner Wooten from Blue by 90 coming back. So we got a great show coming up for your Tuesday night. And next up, we'll be sending everybody to the Voice of College Football main call-in show with Mark Rogers. But before we do, Dre, as always, want to give you a final thought and where people can follow you.
Yeah, well, you see my Twitter handle below. Give me a follow here. And yeah, guys, we continue to let this process play out. And look, all we can ask these guys is to handle their business. We know that the news cycle is always, it's a 24, 48 news cycle until there's something else that comes up. Now, I'm not saying that this will just disappear, but, I think the best thing that Michigan can do is to continue to handle the business. And, whatever happens, we take it as it is and we go forward. But my biggest thing is I hope that these guys continue to have the opportunity to chase their dream, at least at the collegiate level, which is to win a national title. They worked their butts off to get to this point, and I just hope they get that opportunity, That's all I got to say.
Absolutely. Well, Dre, go Blue, and we'll see you. Obviously, we're about to play a ranked team next, so look out. Here we go.
Sounds good. Talk to you guys next week.
Bye, Dre.
Bye.
And real quick, we'll just do our housekeeping. So don't forget that it's football season. Get your Voice of College Football merch on the merch store. Free shipping. Join our Patreon and YouTube membership. We have a 24/7 Discord chat going all the time. Talk Wolverines, talk other teams. We've been talking about, Bama and LSU. We've been talking about the No Defense Bowl with Washington beating USC today. So all of that's going on in our Discord chat. And of course, ticketsmarter.com. Get your tickets. Still got a couple more weeks of football season. You can use BIG for $10 off a purchase of at least $100 and BIG 20 for $20 off a purchase of at least $300. And like I said, I'm going to be sending everybody now to the mega call-in show that we do after every Saturday. So join that, which I believe is now in progress. So I'm going to go ahead and post the link here, if I can find it. If Moose gets there first, that's fine too. So it looks like he's waiting for us to finish, which is very nice. I appreciate that. And our buddy, friend of the program, Mike Ford, is over there. So there we go. All right. Next up, Voice of College Football call-in show with Mark Rogers. And I just posted it right there. And I was your host tonight, John Diadamo. Follow me on Twix at John Diadamo. It's pretty self-explanatory, nothing too crazy there. And I do host Michigan Wolverines live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. I also host Big Ten Live, the Ocho, at 8 p.m. Eastern every Monday night right after Mark Rogers. We have the Ocho with a cast of characters from the Voice of College Football community. So those are the other shows that I do each and every week here at the Voice of College Football. But coming up, let's all go over and give our support to Mark and the call-in show over there. Thanks everybody for stopping by. We've had a great turnout tonight. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and do all the things to help support Voice of College Football. And until next time, this is John Diadamo saying, go blue. Bye, everybody.